The red ink screamed failure. Elliot Jackson, 17, stared at the F scrawled across his history essay, his heart pounding so loud it drowned out the chatter of his classmates. He'd spent weeks on that paper, pouring his soul into every word, only to have it gutted by Mr. Callahan's pen. Elliot's hands trembled as he clutched the paper, his dark eyes scanning the classroom in Roosevelt High, a sprawling public school in Chicago's South Side. The walls, peeling with faded paint, seemed to close in. He wasn't just any student, he was the kid who'd clawed his way to a 3.8 GPA despite a world that seemed rigged against him. A black, queer teen in a neighborhood where survival often trumped dreams. Elliot had learned to navigate life like a tightrope walker. But this wasn't a misstep. This was sabotage. Mr. Callahan, the history teacher with a reputation for being tough but fair, stood at the front, his cold blue eyes avoiding Elliot's gaze. The man's thin lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile as he handed out the rest of the graded papers. Elliot's best friend, Mia, a 16-year-old Latina with a fiery streak, leaned over from the next desk. "What the hell? Elle, you aced that draft. I saw it." Her whisper was sharp, her brown eyes wide with disbelief. Elliot didn't answer. His mind raced back to last month, when he'd come out to a small group of friends in the school's GSA club. Word spread fast in Roosevelt High, and by the next week, whispers followed him down the halls. "Faggot," some muttered. Others just stared. Mr. Callahan, who'd always been distant but professional, started treating Elliot differently, colder, sharper, like he was a problem to be solved. The F wasn't just a grade. It was personal. He shoved the paper into his backpack, the rainbow pin on the strap glinting under the fluorescent lights. "I'm not letting this slide," he muttered to Mia, his voice low but steady. She nodded, her jaw tight. "You shouldn't. He's got no right." After class, Elliot lingered, waiting for the room to empty. His pulse thrummed as he approached Callahan's desk. The teacher was stacking papers, his movements deliberate, like he was daring Elliot to speak. "Sir," Elliot started, his voice calm but firm. "Can we talk about my grade?" Callahan didn't look up. "It's clear, Jackson. Your work didn't meet the standard." Elliot's stomach twisted. "I cited every source, followed the rubric, even got it peer-reviewed. How did I fail?" The teacher's eyes flicked up, cold and unyielding. "Some people just don't have what it takes." The words landed like a slap, laced with something darker, something that made Elliot's skin crawl. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but Callahan's dismissive wave cut him off. "Office hours are over. Try harder next time." Elliot stood frozen, the weight of the moment pressing down. He wasn't just fighting for a grade. He was fighting for his place in a world that seemed determined to push him out. As he left the classroom, the hallway buzzed with students, oblivious to the storm brewing inside him. Mia was waiting, her arms crossed. "What did he say?" "Nothing worth hearing," Elliot said, his voice tight. "But I'm not done." That night, Elliot sat at his desk in the cramped apartment he shared with his mom, a nurse who worked double shifts. The glow of his laptop lit his face as he typed furiously, digging into Callahan's past. A quick search pulled up old school records, teacher reviews, even a few ex-posts from former students. Most praised Callahan's rigor, but a few mentioned something else: patterns of unfair grading, especially for students who didn't fit his mold of ideal. Black kids, queer kids, kids like Elliot. He leaned back, his mind racing. This wasn't just about him anymore. If Callahan was targeting him, how many others had he crushed? Elliot's fingers hovered over the keyboard, a plan forming. He wasn't just going to fight back, was going to expose the truth, no matter the cost. Mia texted him, "You good?" "Not yet," he replied. "But I will be." The next morning, Elliot walked into Roosevelt High with a fire in his chest. He'd spent hours drafting a letter to the principal, laying out his case with precision, the essay, the rubric, the peer reviews, and Callahan's vague, baseless critique. But as he slipped the letter into the principal's mailbox, doubt crept in. Would anyone listen? Or would they dismiss him as another troubled kid? In the cafeteria, Mia slid into the seat across from him, her tray clattering. "You look like you're plotting a revolution," she teased, but her eyes were serious. "Maybe I am," Elliot said, glancing at the rainbow pin on his bag. It wasn't just a symbol, it was a reminder of who he was, who he'd always been. If Callahan thinks he can bury me, he's about to learn I don't stay down. By third period, rumors were spreading. Someone had seen Elliot's letter. Whispers followed him again, but this time, they weren't cruel, they were curious. Kids he barely knew started asking questions. "You really calling out Callahan?" A senior named Jamal asked, his tone half admiring, half skeptical. "Yeah," Elliot said, meeting his gaze. "You got a problem with that?" Jamal smirked. "Nah, man. Go for it." Elliot's resolve hardened. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for every kid who'd ever felt erased by a system that didn't see them. And he was only getting started. Elliot's letter didn't stay quiet for long. By the end of the week, the principal, Ms. Harper, a no-nonsense black woman in her 50s, called him into her office. Her desk was cluttered with papers, a framed photo of her daughter smiling beside a stack of files. "Elliot," she began, her voice steady but warm, "this is a serious accusation. You're sure about this?" Elliot nodded, his palms sweaty. "I have proof. Ms. Harper. My essay, the rubric, everything. Callahan didn't even give me feedback, just an F." She leaned back, her eyes searching his face. "I'll look into it. But you need to understand, this could get messy. Callahan's been here 20 years. He's got influence." "I know," Elliot said, his voice unwavering. "But I'm not backing down." Ms. Harper's lips twitched, almost a smile. "All right. I'll need your essay and any other evidence. And Elliot, be careful." He left her office with a mix of hope and dread. The school was a pressure cooker now, whispers turning into debates in the halls. Some kids backed Elliot, especially those who'd felt Callahan's wrath before. Others, loyal to the teacher, called him a troublemaker. "He's just mad he failed," a jock sneered in the locker room. Elliot ignored him, but the words stung. Mia, ever his rock, wasn't having it. "They're just scared," she said as they sat in the library, surrounded by dusty books and the hum of fluorescent lights. "Callahan's got half the school thinking he's God. But you're right. He's not untouchable." Elliot flipped open his laptop, pulling up more research. He'd found an old X thread from a graduated student claiming Callahan had failed her for personal reasons. The post was vague, but it hinted at bias, maybe racial, maybe something else. "If I can find more people, we can build a case," he said, his voice low. Mia grinned. "My cousin's in college now, but she had Callahan 3 years ago. Said he was weird about her hijab. I'll ask her." By the weekend, Elliot had a small team. Mia's cousin, Aisha, sent a detailed email about Callahan's subtle jabs at her faith. Another kid, a quiet sophomore named Leo, admitted Callahan had mocked his stutter in front of the class. The stories piled up, each one a piece of a puzzle Elliot was determined to solve. But Callahan wasn't oblivious. Monday morning, he called Elliot to his desk after class. The room was empty, the air thick with tension. "You think you're clever, Jackson?" Callahan's voice was low, almost a growl. "Stirring up trouble won't change your grade." Elliot's heart raced, but he held his ground. "I'm not stirring up trouble. I'm calling out what's wrong." Callahan's eyes narrowed. "You're out of your depth, kid. Drop this, or you'll regret it." The threat hung heavy as Elliot walked out, his mind spinning. Was Callahan just bluffing? Or was there more to his power than Elliot realized? He needed allies, real ones. That night, he reached out to the GSA club. The group met in a small art room, walls covered in student murals. There, he met Sam, a 17-year-old non-binary kid with bright blue hair and a quiet strength. "I heard about your letter," Sam said, their voice soft but firm. "Callahan's been shady with me too. Graded me down after I corrected him on my pronouns." Elliot's chest tightened. "You in?" Sam nodded. "All the way." Together, they drafted a petition, demanding an investigation into Callahan's grading practices. They posted it on X, tagging the school district and local education blogs. By morning, it had over 200 likes and dozens of comments from current and former students, some sharing their own stories. The tide was turning, but Elliot knew it wouldn't be easy. Callahan had allies, two teachers who respected him, parents who thought he was a pillar of the community. At home, Elliot's mom noticed his tension. "You okay, baby?" she asked, her voice soft as she stirred a pot of collard greens. He hesitated, then told her everything. Her face hardened. "You're doing the right thing, Elliot. But you watch your back. People like Callahan don't go down easy." Her words stuck with him as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The fight was bigger than one grade now. It was about justice, about proving he belonged. And maybe, just maybe, it was about showing the world who he really was, a black, queer kid who refused to be silenced. The petition went viral, at least by Roosevelt high standards. By Wednesday, it had 500 likes on X, and the comments section was a battlefield. Some praised Elliot's courage. Others called him a liar fishing for attention. "He's just playing the race card," one anonymous user wrote. Elliot's stomach churned, but he kept scrolling, saving every supportive comment as fuel. At school, the air crackled with tension. Kids stared as he walked by, some whispering, others offering quick nods of respect. Mia, Sam, and Leo stuck close, their group a small but fierce alliance. They met in the library during lunch, spreading out papers and laptops like war strategists. "We need more evidence," Sam said, their blue hair catching the light. "Stories are good, but we need something concrete." Elliot nodded, pulling up his essay again. "I've got the rubric, my drafts, and peer reviews." Callahan didn't even mark specific errors, just wrote inadequate. Leo, usually quiet, spoke up. "I kept my old tests. He failed me on a quiz I know I got right. I can dig them up." Mia smirked. "That's my boy. Let's bury this guy in proof." But Callahan wasn't sitting idle. That afternoon, he pulled Elliot aside again, this time in the hallway. His voice was calm, but his eyes were steel. "You're making a mistake, Jackson. This little crusade of yours, it's not just your grade on the line anymore." Elliot's pulse spiked, but he forced a steady voice. "I'm not scared of you." Callahan's smile was thin, almost pitying. "You should be." The threat lingered as Elliot walked away, his mind racing. Was Callahan hinting at something bigger? A suspension? Worse? He didn't know, but he wasn't stopping. That night, he and Sam met at a coffee shop near school, a cozy place with mismatched chairs and the smell of roasted beans. Over hot chocolate, Sam opened up. "Callahan's not just biased, it's calculating. Last year, he docked my project for lack of focus after I presented on queer history. Said it wasn't relevant." Elliot's jaw tightened. "He's targeting anyone who doesn't fit his mold." Sam nodded, their eyes fierce. "We're not just fighting for grades. We're fighting for us." The words hit Elliot hard. He'd always kept his queerness quiet, not out of shame, but survival. Growing up black in Chicago's South Side, he'd learned to pick his battles. But now, those battles were choosing him. He glanced at Sam, their rainbow bracelet peeking out from their sleeve, and felt a spark of something new: connection. Maybe even hope. By Friday, Ms. Harper called Elliot, Mia, Sam, and Leo into her office. Her face was unreadable as she spread their evidence across her desk: Elliot's essay, Leo's quiz, Aisha's email, and screenshots of the expedition. "This is compelling," she said, "but Callahan's denying everything. Says you're misinterpreting his standards." Elliot's heart sank. "So what now?" "I'm escalating this to the school board," Ms. Harper said. "But I need you to keep quiet while they investigate. No more petitions. No more ex posts. Can you do that?" Elliot exchanged glances with his friends. "We'll try," he said, but his mind was already racing. Silence wasn't his style, not anymore. That weekend, Elliot's mom invited Mia and Sam over for dinner. The apartment smelled of fried chicken and cornbread, and for a moment, the weight lifted. "You kids are brave," his mom said, passing the mashed potatoes. "But bravery comes with a price. You ready for it?" Elliot met her gaze. "I have to be." Sam smiled softly, their hand brushing Elliot's under the table. It was brief, accidental, but it sent a jolt through him. He wasn't sure what it meant, but it felt like a promise of what? He didn't know yet. Monday brought a new challenge. Callahan had rallied his supporters. A group of parents, mostly white and wealthy, showed up at a PTA meeting, defending him as a dedicated educator. One even suggested Elliot was troubled and disruptive. The words cut deep, but Elliot refused to let them define him. He and his crew kept digging, now in secret. Leo found an old syllabus from Callahan's class that contradicted his grading rubric. Mia tracked down another alum on X who claimed Callahan had failed her for being too outspoken as a black girl. The evidence was mounting, but so was the pressure. Elliot felt the eyes of the school on him, judging, waiting. As he walked home that night, Sam caught up with him, their breath visible in the chilly Chicago air. "You okay?" they asked, their voice soft. Elliot shrugged, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "I don't know. This is bigger than I thought." Sam stopped, turning to face him. "You're not alone, Elliot. We're in this together." For the first time in days, Elliot smiled. It was small, but it was real. Maybe he wasn't alone after all. The school board investigation moved slowly, like molasses in winter. Elliot felt the drag of every day, the weight of waiting for justice. Class with Callahan was torture. Now every glance from the teacher felt like a warning. Every assignment a potential trap. But Elliot kept his head down, acing every quiz, every discussion, determined to prove Callahan wrong. Mia noticed the strain. "You're gonna burn out, Elle," she said one afternoon in the GSA room, where they'd started meeting regularly. The murals on the walls' bright swirls of color felt like a small rebellion against the grayness of their fight. "You can't carry this alone." "I'm not," Elliot said, but his voice cracked. He was tired, not just physically but deep in his bones. The whispers in the halls. The sideways looks from teachers who sided with Callahan was all piling up. Sam, sitting cross-legged on the floor, looked up from their sketchbook. We need to shake things up. Something big. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Like what? A walkout, Sam said, their eyes gleaming. Get every kid who's been screwed over by Callahan to join. Show the school board we're serious. Mia grinned. Hell yeah. Let's make noise. The idea was risky, but it lit a fire in Elliot. They spent the next few days planning in secret, passing notes in the halls, texting in group chats, rallying support. By Friday, they had over 50 students ready, black kids, queer kids, kids who'd been silenced by Callahan's red pen. The walkout happened Monday morning, right after first period. Elliot stood in the courtyard, his heart pounding as students poured out of classrooms, holding signs scrawled with fair grades now and justice for all. Mia led a chant, her voice booming, no more bias, no more lies. Sam stood beside Elliot, their rainbow bracelet glinting in the sun, their hand brushing his again, this time not accidental. The sight was electric, kids of every color, every identity, united in the chilly Chicago air. But it wasn't just students. A local news van pulled up, cameras rolling. The school board couldn't ignore this now. Ms. Harper appeared, her face a mix of frustration and admiration. You kids are something else, she said, her voice low. But you've got their attention. Don't waste it. Elliot nodded, his throat tight. We won't. That night, the news ran a story on the walkout, framing it as a student uprising against unfair grading. Elliot's name was front and center, along with a clip of him speaking to the crowd. We're not just fighting for grades. We're fighting for our right to be seen. His mom watched the TV, tears in her eyes. I'm proud of you, baby, she said, pulling him into a hug. But pride came with fear. Callahan's allies doubled down, flooding X with posts calling the walkout disrespectful and Elliot a rabble-rouser. One teacher, Mrs. Klein, even pulled him aside to warn him. You're making enemies. Elliot, think about your future. He wanted to snap back, but Sam's words echoed in his mind. You're not alone. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for Leo, for Aisha, for Sam, for every kid who'd been told they didn't belong. The next day, the school board summoned Elliot, Mia, and Sam to a meeting. The room was stark, with long tables and stern faces. A board member, a white man in a suit, leaned forward. You've caused quite a stir, Mr. Jackson. But accusations need proof. What do you have? Elliot laid it all out. The essays, the quizzes, the emails, the ex-posts. He spoke clearly, his voice steady despite the nerves. Mia chimed in with Aisha's story, Sam with their own. The board listened, their expressions unreadable. As they left, Sam grabbed Elliot's hand, squeezing it. You did good, they whispered. Elliot's heart skipped, not just from the fight, but from Sam's touch. He wasn't sure what was growing between them, but it felt like a lifeline. Thanks, he said, his voice soft. Couldn't do this without you. Back at school, Callahan's demeanor shifted. He was quieter, less confrontational, but his eyes still burned when they met Elliot's. The investigation was ongoing, but Elliot sensed a storm brewing. Callahan wasn't done fighting, and neither was he. The investigation dragged on, and Roosevelt High felt like a battlefield. Elliot walked the halls with his head high, but the weight of the fight was heavy. Some teachers avoided him now, their silence louder than words. Others, like Ms. Harper, offered quiet support, a nod, a smile, a keep going. Elliot, But the backlash was real. Anonymous notes appeared in Elliot's locker, scrawled with slurs and threats. "Quit while you're ahead." One read. He showed them to Mia and Sam, who were furious. "This is Callahan's doing," Mia said, crumpling the paper. "He's too much of a coward to face you himself." Elliot wasn't so sure. Callahan's threats had been vague, but the notes felt personal, like someone closer was watching. He started checking over his shoulder, the paranoia creeping in. Sam noticed. During a GSA meeting, they pulled him aside. "You're not okay, are you?" they asked, their voice gentle. The art room was quiet, the murals a soft backdrop to their words. Elliot sighed, running a hand over his face. "I'm just tired. This is bigger than I thought it'd be." Sam's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "You don't have to carry it alone, Elliot. I'm here." Their eyes held his, steady and warm, and for a moment, the world felt less heavy. That night, Elliot couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk, the glow of his laptop casting shadows. He dug deeper into Callahan's past, scouring X and old school records. Then he found a blog post from a former teacher, now retired, hinting at a pattern. Callahan had been investigated years ago for biased grading, but was cleared due to lack of evidence. The post was obscure, buried in an education forum, but it was a lead. Elliot shared it with Mia and Sam in their group chat. "This could be it," he typed. "Proof he's done this before." Mia replied instantly, "Get it to Harper now." The next day, Elliot slipped the blog post printout into Ms. Harper's mailbox, along with a note explaining its relevance. He felt a flicker of hope, but it was short-lived. That afternoon, Callahan called him to his classroom again. The door was closed, the air thick. "I warned you, Jackson," Callahan said, his voice low. "You're digging a hole you can't climb out of." Elliot's heart pounded, but he stood tall. "I'm not the one who's scared, Mr. Callahan. You are." The teacher's face twitched, a crack in his composure. "You think you're untouchable because you've got the principal on your side. You're nothing but a kid with a chip on his shoulder." Elliot's fists clenched. "And you're a teacher who's supposed to lift kids up, not tear them down." Callahan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're playing a dangerous game, Jackson. Drop it, or I'll make sure you lose more than a grade." The threat hit hard, but Elliot didn't flinch. He walked out, his heart racing, but his resolve stronger than ever. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, was fighting for every kid Callahan had hurt. That evening, Sam came over to Elliot's apartment. They sat on his bed, surrounded by posters of Kendrick Lamar and a worn pride flag pinned to the wall. "You're incredible. You know that," Sam said, their voice soft. Elliot laughed, a little embarrassed. "I'm just stubborn." "No," Sam said, their eyes serious. "You're brave. And you're making a difference." Their hands brushed again, and this time, Elliot didn't pull away. He leaned closer, his heart pounding for a different reason now. "Sam," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Sam smiled, their fingers lacing with his. "You don't have to find out." The moment was brief but electric, a quiet promise in the chaos. Elliot didn't know where this was going, but for the first time, he felt like he could face whatever came next with Sam by his side. The school board called a hearing, and the news spread like wildfire. Elliot, Mia, and Sam were summoned to present their case in a packed conference room at the district office. The air was thick with tension, the room filled with board members, teachers, parents, and even a few reporters. Callahan sat across from them, his face a mask of calm, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Elliot stood, his hands steady despite the knot in his stomach. He laid out everything: the essay, the rubric, the ex-posts, the blog post, the stories from Aisha, Leo, and Sam. His voice was clear, each word deliberate. "This isn't just about my grade," he said, locking eyes with the board. "It's about a teacher abusing his power to silence students who don't fit his idea of worthy." Mia followed, her voice fierce as she shared Aisha's story. Sam spoke last, their words quiet but piercing, recounting Callahan's dismissal of their identity. The room was silent, the weight of their words sinking in. Callahan's lawyer, a sharp-suited man with a clipped voice, countered. "These are baseless accusations from disgruntled students. Mr. Callahan has an impeccable record. This is nothing but a smear campaign." Elliot's heart sank, but then MS. Harper stood. "I've reviewed the evidence," she said, her voice commanding. "There's a pattern. I've seen it myself: students of color, queer students, anyone who challenges Mr. Callahan's authority, graded unfairly. It's not coincidence." The board promised a decision within the week, but the wait was agonizing. Back at school, the divide deepened. Some students rallied behind Elliot, wearing rainbow pins and Justice for All shirts. Others, egged on by Callahan's supporters, called it a witch hunt. One kid, a senior named Tyler, cornered Elliot in the hallway. "You're tearing this school apart, man. For what? A better grade?" Elliot's jaw tightened. "For what's right." Tyler scoffed, but there was doubt in his eyes. Elliot walked away, his heart pounding. He was tired of explaining, tired of fighting, but giving up wasn't an option. That night, Sam invited him to their house, a small brick home with a tiny garden out front. They sat on the porch, the Chicago skyline faint in the distance. "You ever think about what happens if we win?" Sam asked, their voice soft. Elliot shrugged. "I just want Callahan gone. I want kids like us to feel safe." Sam smiled, their hand finding his. "You're not just fighting for us, Elliot. You're fighting for you, too. For who you are." The words hit deep. Elliot had spent so long hiding parts of himself: his queerness, his anger, his dreams. But with Sam, he felt seen. He leaned in, their lips brushing in a quiet, tender kiss. It was brief, but it was everything: a moment of light in the storm. The next day, a new threat emerged. An anonymous X account posted a photo of Elliot and Sam holding hands outside school, with a caption, "This is who's leading your revolution." Disgusting. The post spread fast, racking up likes from Callahan's supporters. Elliot's stomach dropped. He wasn't ashamed, but the exposure felt like a violation. Mia was livid. "We're finding out who did this," she said, her fingers flying over her phone. "No one messes with my family." Elliot nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. The post wasn't just an attack, it was a distraction, a way to shift focus from Callahan's wrongs. He wouldn't let it work. He posted his own X update. Simple but bold: "I'm black. I'm queer. I'm fighting for what's right. Justice for all." The response was overwhelming: likes, retweets, messages of support from strangers across the city. But there were hate comments too, sharp and cruel. Elliot ignored them, focusing on the hearing's outcome. The fight was far from over, but he was ready for whatever came next with Sam, Mia, and a growing army behind him. The school board's decision came on a gray Tuesday morning. Elliot, Mia, and Sam sat in MS. Harper's office, the air heavy with anticipation. She slid a letter across her desk, her face unreadable. "They're suspending Callahan pending a full investigation," she said, Your evidence was enough to raise serious concerns. Elliot exhaled, relief flooding him. Mia hooped, fist-bumping Sam. But Ms. Harper raised a hand. This isn't over. Callahan's fighting it, and he's got supporters. You need to be ready for pushback. She was right. By lunch, the news had spread, and the school was a powder keg. Some kids cheered, slapping Elliot's back like he was a hero. Others glared, whispering about special treatment. A group of parents organized a protest outside the school, holding signs that read, "Save our teachers." Callahan wasn't in class, but his presence lingered, a shadow over everything. Elliot felt the weight, but something else was growing too pride. He'd started this fight alone, but now he had a community. The GSA club threw a small celebration in the art room, with cupcakes and a playlist of queer anthems. Sam pulled Elliot into a dance, their laughter cutting through the tension. "We're winning," Sam whispered, their breath warm against his ear. Elliot grinned, his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. "Yeah, we are." But victory was fragile. That night, another anonymous note appeared in Elliot's locker. "You think you've won. Watch your back." He showed it to his mom, who hugged him tight. "You're stronger than they know," she said, her voice fierce. "Don't let them scare you." He didn't, but the fear was real. The next day, he and Sam walked to school together, their hands brushing but not quite holding. The air was crisp, the city alive with the hum of morning traffic. "You ever get tired of fighting?" Sam asked, their voice quiet. "All the time," Elliot admitted. "But then I think about kids like us, years from now. If we don't fight, who will?" Sam stopped, their eyes shining. "You're going to change the world, Elliot Jackson." He laughed, blushing. "Maybe just this school." They kissed again, longer this time, under a bare oak tree. It was a moment of defiance, a claim to their right to exist, to love, to be. But the moment was shattered when Tyler and his crew walked by, sneering. "Get a room, freaks," Tyler spat. Elliot's fists clenched, but Sam grabbed his arm. "They're not worth it," they said, their voice steady. "Let's keep our eyes on the prize." The prize came closer that afternoon. Ms. Harper called Elliot into her office again. The board found more evidence, she said. Old complaints, buried in the system. Callahan's been doing this for years. They're moving to terminate him. Elliot's heart leaped, but he stayed cautious. "What's the catch?" "He's appealing," Ms. Harper said. "There's a final hearing next week. You'll need to testify again, this time in public." The thought made Elliot's stomach twist. Testifying meant exposing himself to the whole city, maybe more. But he thought of Sam's hand in his, Mia's fierce loyalty, his mom's pride. He nodded. "I'm ready." That night, he and Sam stayed up late, drafting his testimony. They sat on Elliot's bed, papers scattered, their shoulders touching. "You're not just speaking for you," Sam said, their voice soft. "You're speaking for all of us." Elliot looked at them, his heart full. "Then I better make it count." As the hearing loomed, the school buzzed with anticipation. Elliot's ex-post had gone viral, with thousands of likes and messages from across the country. He wasn't just a kid anymore, was a voice, a symbol. And with Sam by his side, he felt ready to face the world. The hearing was held in a packed auditorium, the air thick with tension and camera flashes. Elliot stood at the podium, his heart pounding but his voice steady. He wore his rainbow pin proudly, a quiet rebellion against the glares from Callahan's supporters. Mia and Sam sat in the front row, their presence a lifeline. His mom was there too, her eyes shining with pride. I'm not here to tear anyone down, Elliot began, his words echoing through the room. I'm here because no student should be punished for who they are. Mr. Callahan failed me on purpose, not because of my work, but because of my identity. Black, queer, unapologetic. And I'm not the only one. He presented the evidence again, his voice growing stronger with every word. He spoke of Aisha, Leo, Sam, and the countless others whose stories had surfaced. He spoke of the notes, the threats, the fear, but also the hope. This isn't just about a grade, he said. It's about a system that lets teachers like Callahan silence kids like us. It's about making sure no one else has to fight this hard to be seen. The room was silent when he finished, the weight of his words hanging heavy. Callahan's lawyer tried to counter, but his arguments felt hollow, grasping. Ms. Harper testified next, her voice commanding as she laid out the pattern of complaints spanning years. The board listened, their faces grim. When Callahan took the stand, he was composed, his voice smooth. I've dedicated my life to education, he said. These accusations are a misunderstanding, a vendetta from a student who couldn't accept failure. Elliot's fists clenched, but he stayed silent. The truth was out there now, and no amount of spin could bury it. The board deliberated for hours. Elliot waited outside with Sam, Mia, and his mom, the tension unbearable. Sam held his hand, their fingers tight. Whatever happens, they said, you did this. You made them listen. Finally, the board returned. The head, a gray-haired woman with a kind but firm demeanor, stood. Based on the evidence and testimonies, we've decided to terminate Mr. Callahan's employment, effective immediately. The auditorium erupted cheers from Elliot's supporters, gasps from Callahan's. Elliot exhaled, the weight lifting but not gone. Callahan's face was unreadable as he left the room, his allies trailing behind. Outside, the news cameras swarmed. Elliot gave a brief statement, his voice steady. This is for every kid who's been told they don't belong. You do. Keep fighting. That night, the GSA threw a party in the art room, the murals glowing under string lights. Mia blasted music, and Leo, usually shy, danced with abandon. Sam pulled Elliot into a corner, their eyes soft. You changed everything, they said. Elliot smiled, his heart full. We did. They kissed, slow and sure, the world fading around them. It wasn't just a victory over Callahan, it was a victory for them, for their love, for their right to exist. Weeks later, Roosevelt High felt different. New policies were drafted, ensuring fair grading and protections for marginalized students. Elliot's essay was regraded by another teacher, got an A. But the real win was bigger. The school was listening, changing, because of him. As he walked through the halls, his rainbow pin glinting, kids he didn't know smiled at him. He wasn't just Elliot Jackson anymore. He was a voice, a spark, a reminder that one person's fight could light up the world. And with Sam's hand in his, he knew he'd never fight alone again.